as usual, we will follow our agenda to the best of our ability tonight. And the first thing on our agenda is the Public Works Committee, and I have the pleasure of chairing that. And the first thing on the agenda is the North Carolina Division of Rural Economic Development for the Downtown Revitalization Grant. We have some special guests with us tonight. One of them being Representative Bob Steinberg, and he was able to secure a special appropriations in the form of a grant from the state budget for downtown Edenton revitalization project. And we thank you for doing that, Representative Steinberg, and for helping us get that grant and for being with us tonight. Also, the committee that has been working on the design of the Hugh Williamson Monument is Judge Terry Boyle, Miss Virginia Wood, and Beth Taylor. Bob Hopkins
he's not here yet.
He's not here, and he was the manager of the Edenton State Historic Sites, and he was working on that committee along with us. And I'll ask Anne Marie if she will to review the requirements of the revitalization grant, and then I will invite Judge Boyle to speak to us about the significance of Hugh Williamson and the monument.
Okay, thank you. Well, we are really excited about this grant. Thank you again, Representative Steinberg. As part of the General Assembly budget that was approved this past July, $95,800 was written into session law that is to be remitted to the town of Edenton through the form of a grant that is going to be administered by the North Carolina Department of Commerce. And we received paperwork from Commerce recently. We are required to submit to Department of Commerce a proposal stipulating how the town intends to spend the money. There's some guidelines regarding projects and use. The main thing is that the money cannot be used for entertainment, travel, or social, which we would not dream of using the money for that anyway. But we will have to submit a formal proposal to Commerce by September 1st, and then we expect by the middle of October to receive back from Commerce a grant agreement, and then the town council will have to approve the grant agreement, and then we have until the end of March to spend the money and document how the money has been spent. I believe sometime in the fall, actually, the money will be remitted to us, and then we can spend it, which is a little bit different. Most grants are you have to spend it first and then get reimbursed. So we appreciate that, not having to lay out our cash. But I've talked with the gal that is going to be in charge of this program, and I've briefed her on some of the projects that I know the council has been talking about, and she's very excited and willing and interested in helping us. So tonight, what the Public Works Committee will do is review. We have 3 categories of programs for the funding. The first one, as you mentioned, Councilman Stallings, is the funds to construct the Hugh Williamson Monument. The second project that's recommended has to do with Destination Downtown and the recently completed Public Arts Initiative, the public art or the community arts public plan. And then third, there are some recommendations, some ideas that we've proposed to you in terms of infrastructure for downtown. So at this point, I guess it's back to you to introduce Judge Boyle to talk about the monument.
All right. And Judge Boyle, I'll call on you at this time to make your remarks regarding the monument.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
It's a real honor and pleasure to be here with you, and this is a journey of many years and much patience that appears to be nearing the end of the road, and for that I'm really grateful and thankful for those who have made it possible. I want to start out by recognizing Virginia and Beth, without whom this wouldn't have happened. They have been just as committed as anyone could possibly be to bringing this monument to fruition and to following up even when it looked like we probably wouldn't be successful. We started about 15 or more years ago, I don't remember how long, and went before the county. It must have been maybe before 2000. We went before the county commissioners, and they appointed a committee of which I was a member, and Virginia and Beth were, and there were other people. I think Ross Ingalls might have been on it, people who aren't here anymore. But it was a recognition and an effort to bring a visible symbol or location to honor Hugh Williamson here in Edenton. And in getting ready to speak to you tonight, I was trying to think of how you would identify this topic. And the theme that comes to mind is it's a hidden treasure. It's didn't they have that movie, American Treasure? What was the name of that movie? Where they found the Declaration of Independence, I think. Yeah, this is akin to that for Edenton. Hugh Williamson is such a remarkably important person in the formation of the American Republic and in the creation of our form of government. It's just, the more you read, the deeper you get, and the more filled with awe you are about the accomplishments of this man and the things that he did and the places that he was at the place that he was at during the early period. We know that Edenton was a hotbed of patriotism during the Revolutionary War, and he was one of the most important persons. Just to go right to the most visible things, he was a signer of the Constitution. He was one of 5 delegates from North Carolina to the Constitutional Convention. Only 3 of them made it till the end, and he was well recognized throughout the Constitutional Convention as being the leader of the North Carolina delegation. Governors Davie and Martin and Spate, Richard Dobbs Spate from New Bern, and William Blount from Bertie County were the other 4 delegates. Williamson spoke 50 or 60 times during the Constitutional Convention. Most people didn't speak at all except for the leaders. Interesting to note that General Washington, who was in the chair and who was the presiding officer of the Constitutional Convention, never spoke until the end. He didn't say anything. He was the chair, and he recognized people, but he made no statement until the end of the convention when he said that he thought it would work, and he was right. But Hugh Williamson was a leader of the forces that came together in forming the Constitution. And then, it had to go to every state to ratify. North Carolina has the distinction of being the only state ever to vote against or not in favor of the Constitution when they had the first ratification convention in Hillsborough. But Williamson was one of the people that fought hard for a second convention and was prominent in the final ratification by North Carolina. He was elected to Congress. He was the first United States member of Congress from this part of the world. There were 5 members of Congress in the original Constitution for North Carolina. North Carolina was considered to be one of the large states, but we got cheated out of some representation when they started the Constitution. They didn't know how many members of Congress you were going to have, so they reached a bargain, and they gave 5 to North Carolina, and 1 to New Hampshire, and 1 to Rhode Island, and 8 to Virginia, and 8 to New York, and then after the 1790 census, it was realigned, just like it is every 10 years, and North Carolina went up to 9 Congress members after 1790. But he served in Congress for 2 terms. He was advanced age by that time. He lived to be 83. He died in 1817 in New York City, where he was living at the time. He was a bachelor all his life until he went to Congress, and then he married and had 2 children. And sadly, his wife passed away in childbirth with the second child, and the sons did not live to their maturity. They both passed away when they were teenagers, but he was so important to North Carolina. He's one of the founders with, who was it, Governor Davie or Martin, that founded UNC Chapel Hill? Davie? Was it Davie?
Yes, Davie.
Williamson and Davie were
yeah.
in the 3 persons who were the original trustees of the university, and he served on the board of trustees until later in his life. So from 1790 to maybe 1805 or so, he was a member of the initial board of the university. And in those days, I read that they served for life. If you were appointed a trustee of UNC, you stayed until you died. He was a brilliant man. He grew up in a Scots Presbyterian family in Pennsylvania. He was in the first class at what then became the University of Pennsylvania. He was in the first graduating class of what became the University of Pennsylvania. He was a mathematician. He had a degree in mathematics. Then he taught mathematics there. And then he got another degree, and he decided to become a physician. And he went to, where in Scotland? He went to Edinburgh, to the University of Edinburgh, and went back and became a medical doctor, not there, but at the University of Utrecht, which I think is either in Germany or Holland. I think it's in Holland. And he studied medicine under the most prominent and recognized physician in Europe at that time. And so he was a brilliant doctor, and he practiced medicine in Philadelphia for a while. He became an intimate of Franklin's and was one of the founders of the American Philological Society, or however you say it, which was devoted to science. And Franklin had him cross the Atlantic and measure, for scientific purposes, the planet Venus and the transit of Venus, whatever that means. But it was an important event in the day. He was in England when he left America from Boston and saw the Tea Party. This is sort of like a Forrest Gump kind of life. He saw the Tea Party, and so he gets to England, and the news of this is coming. And of course, you know, Edenton has its own Tea Party and relationship to the Boston Tea Party, because that's why the Edenton Tea Party happened. And so they asked him to appear, just like we're doing here, in front of the Privy Council of the British government. And they questioned him about the Tea Party and what was the significance of it. And he told them that it would lead to independence. And he was just a, you know, person who was a educated person and someone from America, and they brought him in and he did that. Anyway, he came back. He came back in 1777, I believe, on that trip. And he went back to Philadelphia. He carried Franklin's dossier, Franklin's messages. Franklin now is in the court of France in Louis the XVI or 17. And Franklin is our ambassador, and what's he doing? He's trying desperately to get France to intervene and to come in on the side of America and to make the revolution a success. And so he carried back all of Franklin's messages and reported to Philadelphia and gave them to the Continental Congress, which was sitting there. And then, I don't have this right, it's in the book, but it's always a mystery to me. He was trying to go to Charleston, where his brother was going to start a shipbuilding outfit with him, and the blockade in the Atlantic that the British had forced him into Edenton. And so, for our good luck, he ended up here in Edenton, and that was in 1777. He was only in Edenton from 1777 to 1793. That's, you know, he doesn't have any children here, he doesn't have any monument here before what we do. But so he came into Edenton, and his brother came up and joined him here, and they began a shipbuilding business. Then he volunteered to be a medical doctor in the service of the Revolutionary War. And who is the governor? Caswell. Makes him the Surgeon General of the North Carolina troops in the Revolutionary War. And he goes with the troops and he fights in battles. In the Battle of Camden, which was a significant battle in the Southern combat, the Southern tour, he treats the Revolutionary soldiers, and then he goes over, he treats the British. He was very advanced for his period. He inoculated all of the troops for smallpox, which was a big killer and a danger that they didn't know how you could prevent against. Well, he was one that believed in vaccination, and he vaccinated them for smallpox. And so the war ended, and he came back to Edenton, and he was mostly engaged in commercial things in Edenton during that post-war period. But he was elected to they keep calling it the Continental Congress, but it's the Confederation Congress. The Articles of Confederation were adopted in 1781, and he was a delegate from 1782 to 1785. This is interesting. You could only serve, this is the first, Samuel, you'll like this is the first legal document to operate America, the Articles of Confederation. You could only serve 3 years as a representative. That was it. After that, somebody else had to come in. Little known fact in our origins, but so he served 3 years, and then he later was re-elected in 1787. But he was a very important person at all these critical stages in forming the Republic. And if you had to identify the most significant thing he did that is the legacy for America, the convention, everything was in secret. They had no press and no outsiders, and they had armed guards in the Constitution Hall in Philadelphia during the deliberations, because they didn't want the information to get out, because if it got out, people would speculate. Profiteers would bet on whether it was going to happen or not happen. Human nature doesn't change, and they had all this money that was out there that, have you ever heard the old saying, worthless as a continental? Has anybody ever heard that other than me? Well, every state printed their own money, and as the idea that there would be a national government that would take over the money prospered, as that idea prospered, the state money went up in value because they thought somebody's going to come in and pay it. As it went down, state money value went down. So I forget what I was going to say about the, that's why they kept it secret. the deliberations. They had a journal, but that was the only information about it. Well, the key point in the whole Constitutional Convention was how the states would, how you would be fair to all the states. There were large states, New York, Virginia, Pennsylvania, North Carolina. There were small states, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Delaware, South Carolina, Georgia. And in the Articles of Confederation, every state had one vote. So the smallest state with the least number of people had the same clout as the largest state with the most people. You had to get everyone to agree. Everyone had one vote. Well, that was one of the problems. And so what the compromise was how you were going to reconcile the states having one vote and the people having the vote. And they worked it out. And the House of Representatives is the body that represents the people, and it's proportionally allotted. And the Senate is the body that represents the states, and everyone has the same. So Wyoming and 2 senators, California 2 senators. So that was the brilliant thing that he was a part of that made it all happen. I've talked too long, but I really think in closing that this activity or this commitment will pay tremendous dividends to Edenton, because it will invite people to be curious about Hugh Williamson and curious about his life. And if they catch the fever, they will really be able to go with it. And I think it will, what little bit we do here in 2016 will bear fruit over many years and decades, hopefully. Any questions? I'm glad to answer any questions if I don't know your schedule.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful, and I could listen to you talk about him forever. It's just so special. Can you tell the council about the significance of the location, why the committee chose Queen Anne Park?
Well, for years we had discussed trying to do a monument to him where the Joseph Hughes Monument is. But that's such an important site and so understood by the people in Edenton and Chilliwack County and the visitors that I think the consensus was that interrupting that would do more harm than good. And so where could we find a spot that was close in location to the Joseph Hughes Monument, to the courthouse, to the green, so that you could share both, so that you could do, well, you could go to the courthouse and hear about Samuel Johnson and hear about the Constitution, then you could come down and see the Declaration of Independence, and then you could walk a few steps and see the Constitution. And from a visitor standpoint, or from an Edenton standpoint, it seemed like there was a balance there that was just ideal. And it's so often things are in front of you and you don't realize it, and there it was. And you know, it's a bridge over to Hayes, both literally and figuratively, because Samuel Johnson was the most important figure in all of this. And Hugh Williamson and Samuel Johnson were close political allies. You know that Samuel Johnson was the first U.S. Senator from North Carolina. So Edenton had, when the country was formed and the Constitution ratified it, Edenton became a state. It had a senator, a U.S. Senator, and a U.S. Congressman. And you know, that's pretty good recognition. Anyway, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Judge Boyd. We appreciate your bringing us up to date on that. And Emery, I'm going to call on you to, if you will, to walk us through the recommended action that we need to take on that.
All right, and you received in your packet a very detailed description of the monument, actually wonderful, a rendering of what the monument will look like in its place. You also received a copy of each panel of the monument and what will be inscripted, is that the right word? What will be inscribed. And there will be words on all 4 panels of the monument. And I know a tremendous amount of work has gone into determining and writing what the panels should say, and I just think it's wonderful. The monument has been designed and by someone who has connections to Edenton. Frank Parker from Parker Monuments has been involved in the process very early on. So what the council will ultimately need to do, and what we're asking the Public Works Committee to do tonight, is one, recommend that the council agree to submit this proposal to Department of Commerce. Number 2, that the council will agree to accept ownership and maintenance of the monument. And then number 3, the location, the specific location of the monument is where currently a bell that was given to the town by the Coast Guard back in the early 1970s is mounted. And that bell is not the bell that is not original to our lighthouse, but it is from an era of a bell from our lighthouse. So the recommendation is that we relocate the bell close to the lighthouse, in some place close to where the lighthouse is now in Colonial Park. So we would need that also ultimately approved by the council. And then finally, because Queen Anne Park is located in the town's historic district, we would need the council to authorize staff to submit an application to the Historic Preservation Commission for a certificate of appropriateness to relocate the bell and then to construct the monument in that location.
All right. Anybody have any questions or comments regarding that?
The only one I have, it's a wonderful thing. The only question I've got is, how do we make a motion to cover all those particular items individually, retroactively, progressively?
And could we also get the committee to start working on Iredell and Samuel Johnson?
Yeah.
And since we have the funding vehicle here, maybe we could have a quick meeting afterwards.
Success breeds success. Yes.
I think a motion would be in order to recommend the 3 things that I outlined, and then we'll list them individually on the council agenda.
And I would like to make that motion that will be further further in the motion at the correct time. List all the participating parts of that motion that would satisfy our needs.
Great.
I'll second that motion.
Norma, you're also on, on that committee.
Yeah, I was looking.
Okay.
I guess we just need to send that to full council. Okay, so I'll make a motion, we send that to full council, if that's agreeable with everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're moving forward.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all are welcome to stay, or you can leave, whichever.
Free to leave.
Free to leave, but you're welcome to stay.
But Your Honor, if you stay, we need about another 30 minutes. That was very interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Virginia's happy.
That's all that matters.
Now, Emery, do you want to cover with us the other projects for consideration under the funding?
Okay. We're happy to have with us tonight Jennifer Harris, our Executive Director for Destination Downtown, and also Regan Cox, who has been spearheading the Public Arts Initiative on behalf of DDE, and Regan now is also the soon-to-be president of the Chowan Arts Council. So we're happy to have both gals here tonight, and we're asking that the council or the committee consider endorsing the public arts plan that you received a copy of at your last council meeting. And then also, we would like to suggest, and hopefully you'll agree, to appropriate or to designate approximately $15,000 of the revitalization funding to go to DDE for the purpose of initiating the public art plan. And I think Jennifer has a few words for you.
Thank you, Anne Marie. We are so grateful for this opportunity, and especially to Representative Steinberg. I know he scooted out, but for securing the funds for downtown redevelopment. I'm sure we can all think of a lot of projects that we could use funding for, but we are most excited about the Edenton Public Art Initiative, and you all received a copy of this, as Anne Marie just mentioned, and we do hope that we think it's very appropriate for you all to endorse this, as it has been such a community wide project. I just wanted to remind you of a couple of things. Geraldine Plato, who came before you all, she's the consultant the Destination Downtown Edenton hired to put together this plan. She conducted over 32 personal interviews. She went around to multiple citizens groups throughout the community. She conducted, 32 one-on-one interviews. 439 surveys were completed. And I think that is a lot of surveys for a community our size, and we were very pleased with the number that we received back. You remember she held several public meetings, and we had a really good turnout for those meetings. She also had several artist roundtable meetings where we actually brought the artists together and said, what do you want to see in our community? Where do you want it located? Where are the places where you feel art is not appropriate? The green was a place that people felt we need to leave it like it is, that it's kind of sacred to our community the way it is, and we didn't need to spoil it with anything else. But and Regan has been wonderful in chairing and has given countless hours. She and Miles and Don Herr created those awesome chalkboards that you all saw at Boogie on Broad, where we had the children write what public art meant to them and what Edenton meant to them. And one thing that I think really stood out to us is so many people wrote community, and they just see Edenton as community spirit, and that's what we want our public art to embrace, is that community spirit in a tangible way. So we are asking for $15,000 to go towards our first public art installment. We will be creating a leadership group from both the Arts Council and DDE and local artists to be able to move forward. As you read through the Edenton Public Art Initiative plan, procedures and everything is listed here. We feel like it has lots of checks and balances to make sure that the art that is installed is appropriate, and again, is what the community wants. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and we thank you for your consideration.
Does anybody have any questions or comments to Jennifer? Okay, thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm not on the committee, but I just want to say,
Okay.
I've just gotten back from a trip, and everywhere I went, they had public art. I mean, it's just, and I was dropped off 2 children in Chapel Hill. It's everywhere. And so, I think that it creates a young, vibrant, diverse town that makes people want to be here, which is what we're trying to do.
Okay, if that be the case, I'll make a recommendation that we send this to full council for approval, if no one has any objections to that. So, okay. And now the next thing on the agenda is we need a consensus on how to spend the remaining $20,000. We've covered all but $20,000 of it, and
Great problem.
yeah, that's right.
So unusual.
Anne Marie has several suggestions on how to spend that money. Do you want me to cover that, or you want to do it, or?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. We had thrown out some ideas to you over the last few weeks. One was the missing sidewalk linking on South Granville Street from the Blunt Street intersection and West Queen Street to West Water Street near Colonial Park. That is an investment that would be covered under the terms of Department of Commerce. There's been a suggestion that we should invest in the engineering work, hire an engineer to evaluate and design the electrical system that will be needed to support our new streetlights whenever we are able to identify funding for new streetlights. There are a couple parking or paving projects. The parking lot behind the Taylor Theater off of West Eden Street, I don't think that parking lot has ever been repaved since it was installed, probably back in the 40s or 50s. The street, the 500 block of South Broad Street is in need of pavement also. And I thought of the Court Street along the green, you know, that is a big part of our downtown. And Colonial Avenue is in good shape, but Court Street needs to be overlaid. So if you wanted to use funds for that. And then finally, DDE has talked about the need for having funds to set up a business incentive fund similar to the State Department of Commerce building reuse grant, where if a business wanted to renovate vacant space and they were going to create jobs, we could set up grant program very similar to what the state has. For instance, the barber shop, I know that the fellas that were the barbers, not the owner of the shop that recently closed is from Elizabeth City, but the two barbers have talked about setting up a barber shop in the downtown, and we've been assisting them and encouraging them, but they need to make some capital investments. And we thought, wow, wouldn't it be great if DDE had access to some funding and it could be tied again to job creation, matches with investment. So those were the few ideas that we came up with. And certainly you all may have other suggestions too.
Well, we've got 6 ideas here that Anne Marie has come up with, and 6 suggestions. And does anyone else have anything that they would like to add to this list?
Well, I'd like to make a comment about some of the things on the list. Okay.
Please.
I noticed a email from the mayor, which was endorsing something that's been on my agenda for as long as I've been in Edenton, and that is that putting in the sidewalk on Water Street. It's been my view about that we're really looking for an accident to happen, and it could be a horrible accident because people walk in the street there. There's no place for them to walk off the street. It's, I think it's a very dangerous situation that the town is in by leaving that without sidewalks, an alternative for people walking. I've personally made that turn at night, leaving here or on other nights, and wham, I make a turn and there's somebody walking right down the middle of the street. And it's frightful. I really think we owe it to our community to do something about that. And we also owe it to people who come here to visit. We're doing things to try to encourage more traffic, perhaps walking on Water Street by improving the old commission building, and also by adding the monument down here at the park. I think the bottom line of it is the town has got its population and visitors in peril. If we continue to ignore that very dangerous part of our town.
Can I ask a quick question? Did we decide is a proposal to put it on that side or the?
That hasn't been decided.
Okay, I mean, that's something, and will this cover
It is a
it?
problem.
Yeah, will this cover it?
It won't cover the whole thing.
But it'll do some of it.
It'll do most of it.
Okay.
And we also, I'll have to go back, I meant to pull out you had a sidewalk pedestrian master plan done a couple years ago, and that was one of the priorities in the plan.
Got it.
And I think it had it designated on, I can't remember which side of the road. But anyway, that would be something that you'd have to.
But it was there, one way or the
Yes,
other.
yes, yes.
I know we talked about it, and there was some opposition to putting it on the water side of it. Do we have any idea how much additional it would cost? Because I know we're going to have to dig into that.
Yeah, I would think that grade would be expensive.
Yeah,
To go into,
that's what I'm thinking.
and it gets so close to those buildings too.
To the buildings?
Well, if we put it from the library on, it goes pretty close to
Yeah.
Churros and,
Very
I mean, the old, yeah, the,
I'll have to dig out the old estimate, but it was, I want to say it was almost $30,000 to put it on the, I guess it would be the north side of Water Street, because some sort of small retaining wall had to be built because of the bluff. Is that what you would call it too? Or the
Yeah, I guess that is a
bluff
bluff,
on
yeah.
Pembroke?
And how much to put it on the other side?
I think the other side, it was around 20, but then we had to navigate around utilities and things like that, and
Yeah.
Sam's shaking his head, so, yeah.
Okay. So where do we go from here so far as that issue is concerned? Do we,
Well, if that is the priority that the council would like, we'll work on getting better cost estimates and present that to you at the September meeting.
I mean, we really haven't had much discussion about it, so I mean, I guess, is that the consensus of the group that we need to pursue that
Well,
item?
I'm not on that committee, so I just thought I'd wait until
Okay,
regular council meeting.
okay.
I mean, I think we could just talk about it now, it might be better.
Yeah,
Just
I mean,
everybody, I mean, that.
If you got something to
So we
share,
got
don't
some
file this
ideas
thing.
instead of,
Don't worry, I never do.
Boy, there's one.
Okay, moving forward. I recommend we send this to full council. Jean, you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And the last item that we have is the solid waste transfer station. And again, I'll call on Ms. Knighton to
Okay?
talk to us about that.
We were informed recently that Waste Industries is no longer going to be in the hauling business. The town, many years ago, built a transfer station at Public Works, and that means that what that is we empty our sanitation trucks into basically a big hopper, and there's a trailer, and it has saved the town just a lot of money over the years. It was a brilliant move. I think it was Bill Gardner, former town manager, Bill Gardner's idea. And so we immediately solicited proposals from other haulers and found that there's only one in the business that would be willing to do the hauling for us. And when we looked at what the price was, we started thinking that, well, maybe we could do that. Maybe we could purchase the trailer. We already own a truck that could, haul the trailer. And so William and Bud Powell and I, William and Bud have been doing all the work, getting cost estimates. And what we have come up with is for an investment, we would have to purchase a trailer, and we have found several trailers new that are available in North Carolina. William can go and look at it and make sure it's going to work for us. But that purchase price is somewhere around $75,000. There's some quotes a little bit lower, but then there's shipping costs to get it here. But when we factor in what our labor costs would be, and it's basically a driver with a CDL license, 4 hours a day, 2 hours to the landfill, 2 hours back. On average, it might be less depending on lines and things like that. And then factor in that person's fringe and overhead, fuel, insurance. Randy called the league and got estimates of what our increased insurance, workers' comp would be, maintenance, and then just general overhead, the overhead of, all of the administration that the town would provide to this. We can do it a lot cheaper. We can, the price that the contractor was proposing is $252 per load from the transfer station to the landfill. In addition, we would also be charged about $1,100 a month to lease the trailer. So we would be paying for the trailer eventually, and also then paying the per load cost. And when we add up what our costs are, and then we factored in the purchase of a trailer and giving it a life value of 5 years, which is what we gave the private haulers. So we're comparing apples to apples. Our cost per load, owning the trailer, is $222 per load. The contractor, factoring in all of that, is almost $100 more per load. So the benefit is, one, we're paying for the trailer ourselves, and number two, just the overall low administration that we have to manage that program. We're already set up, we already have drivers, we have the truck to haul it. So I think that this is an opportunity for us to do something that the private sector normally does less expensive, but we feel confident that we can do it and save the town money.
So we wouldn't have to hire an additional driver, we could use some of the...
We would have to hire a driver, but we have somebody on staff. We'd have to allocate his time differently.
Well, how many, is it okay to ask a question?
Sure.
But, what's the approximate number of trips per week, or how do you come up with the figures? 4 a week?
4 a week, 1 a day, but not on Wednesdays when we do recycling.
Okay.
So,
Then that's basically, you'd have to consider that an investment, actually, because that trailer, although it's dedicated for this, or its origin, will no doubt find other uses.
well,
Unless I am sorely mistaken, I don't know.
I'm not sure about that, but you're onto something, because one of the things that William made a case for is the fact that we will have total control over the trailer. There have been times when the contractor didn't have the trailer available, we got backed up. There have been times during bad weather when they couldn't bring a trailer, and we have to get that garbage out of the hopper because we have a permit to operate the transfer station. The state requires that we do certain things, so we're excited about the opportunity to really control our own destiny and not be having to depend on an outside contractor to provide.
Sounds like a good decision to me.
So William, you're suggesting that that's the thing to do, is that,
Yes.
if I'm understanding correctly? Okay, good. Thank you, Anne Marie.
Can I just ask one quick question, so I'll know for the next meeting? You said you make 4 trips, but you only make the trips, I'm assuming, on the day that you collect garbage, which is Mondays and Fridays.
We do dumpsters.
We do dumpsters all the way through the week.
You do dumpsters?
You may have 3 loads on Monday, and you may not get complete load. So you may not do 4 loads a week, but on the average, we do 1 a week. I mean, one a day. And then we go through and pick up all the businesses on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and sometimes on Wednesdays once they get through picking up recycling. So we're constantly picking up garbage.
I was just wondering how that works, since you said you didn't, because
Yeah.
Just because you may not be completed on Monday, and sometimes it may not have a full load on Friday, and they complete it on Monday, and they go on Monday for that, and then the next day it's completed. So you got 3 loads that go in most of the trailers most of the time. So it's a continuing thing. And where we run into problems with the contractors are when they deliver a trailer, if one of their trailers break down, we're stuck. I mean, we don't have any way of hauling out. We have to go to Bertie Loop and things like that. And that's happened quite often here lately. And since Waste Industries have decided that they were going to take and pull out on us, it's a good opportunity for us to kind of make back some money that we spent over the years in this opportunity.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions or comments? If not, I'll make a recommendation that we send that to full council. And that was the last item that the Public Works Committee had. And the next is the Utilities Commission, chaired by Councilman Gwen.
That's me.
Yeah.
At, excuse me, at last month's committee meeting, where we talked about the draft update for customer service policy. Electricities, excuse me, can't get it out, periodically updates their model policy, and this was based, I think, on 2009 General Assembly legislation, and they've changed some of the policies going into this year, and it's appropriate that we look at that, at the policies we currently have. Emery, do you think it's appropriate that you go through each one of those changes? We did that last time. And
We did. Most of the changes, as you said, Councilman Quinn, pertain to changes in law, the General Assembly. For example, there's procedures for our debt set-off program. When we started that program, you all adopted a resolution dictating or stipulating how we would implement that program, but we think it's important to have it in the manual so that our customers...
I went through all of those. I think that they're all very appropriate, and it would be bad for us not to have them in our current policy.
Well, I think it'll be helpful for the customer. The only change that was not promulgated based on state law, and we talked about this at the last meeting, had to do with property owners hiring managers to manage their property. And this stipulates what the responsibilities are. And I think that's going to be helpful to our customer service staff going forward. But we're really pleased. We've put a lot of work into it. There's been a lot of collaboration. And if you recommend approval and the council adopts it, we've got it ready so it can be put on the town's webpage.
Well, we move it to the full council.
Okay. The next item is the Finance Committee, and that's chaired by Councilman Dixon.
Okay, we've got one thing on tonight, and we've gotten 3 firms interested in doing the joint town-county update of the land use plan, and I'm going to, we got all of that in our packet, but I'm going to turn this over to you to discuss.
Well, initially the solicitation generated one proposal, and that was from Holland Land Planners out of Wilmington, and you're familiar with Dale and his firm, and they do great work. The commissioners are actually the fiscal agent for this grant, and so they asked Elizabeth and Kevin to resolicit proposals, which was a good thing because the county received 3 additional proposals. One was just so over the top. The budget was just, I mean, it's more than, wow. It was $102,000 from a firm. I'm sure they would do a fabulous job, but I think they would be here every day for a year, and we would be at meetings every day for a year working on that plan. So we sort of put that one aside. But the other 2 proposals were very interesting, and we ended up interviewing the 2 firms. One is a firm called Stewart, and that firm is located in Raleigh, and our friend and former colleague Chad Sari is with that group, and we had a very interesting and informative conference call with him and his staff, him and his colleagues. Their firm has not done a lot of land use plans, but individually, the team members have done them through their careers. And then we interviewed another group, and I thought for certain that this company, Code Right, did not understand that it was a joint land use plan, that there were basically going to be two land use plans, because their fee was so incredibly
Cheap.
I hate to use the word cheap, but it was low.
Yeah,
Well,
I agree.
they're out of Durham, and they are, their company's philosophy is, and I hope a lot of our vendors hear this, that they don't charge for travel time. They don't charge you when they leave the office to travel to get here, and they only, and they try to schedule their time so that, their travel, so that they're in the region that they're working, doing work for all of their clients around the same time. That being said, they told us they are going to lose money if we hire them or the county hires them. They know they're going to lose money on this deal, that they're going to end up spending more time, but they want this project. They want to be in northeastern North Carolina. They're currently working in Nags Head, they're working in Southern Shores, and they were working in I'm sorry, I believe it's either Currituck or Camden. I can't remember what other community. Camden. They were smart planners. They got it. Their interview was very different. I think we'll get a good product from them, and I think they'll make it a fun process. So wanted to let you know where we stood with those. Ultimately, the commissioners, because they're the fiscal agent, are going to make the decision, but Kevin and Elizabeth asked, of course, for our input, and I told them that I would review it with you tonight, and if you have a burning desire to, talk with one of the firms, we can certainly do that. But this is...
Well, is it okay to give input on this thing? I was astounded at the difference in the prices.
Yeah,
They went from
amazing.
27.5 to 48 to 100 and something, It had to caught your eye, and it's great to hear what you're saying about the 15 group. That's a woman-owned business, as I understand. I thought it was a refreshing kind of proposal.
Well, that's a nice way to characterize it, because I found their presentation refreshing. It's a young group, and again, they really want to be here, so.
I think that's a huge asset.
Do you want to send this to full council, or you just want to get input from everybody and see what everybody thinks, and then
I think
just kind of take back how we feel about it?
I will, if everybody, there's consensus that you're okay with where it's headed, I'll pass that on to the commissioners. I think the commissioners are meeting in early September ahead of your meeting, so you won't have to take any formal action,
Yeah.
but I know they'll appreciate hearing.
Norman, what do you?
I'll agree on that.
Okay. Elton, you okay with it? Okay. I think everybody else, I thought they are. Okay. Well, I think that's all you need from us is consensus. You got it. That ends the finance committee.
That was great.
And that ends our agenda, so we stand adjourned. Unless someone else has anything else.